When we're talking about borderline personality disorder, no one size fits all. Okay, there's a lot of gray area. And specifically with BPD, there are 4 different subtypes. And on today's video, I want to talk about the petulant BPD and the signs and symptoms specific for the petulant. Here we go. Welcome back, friends. Ashley Berges here today. And today I want to talk specifically about the petulant BPD, someone that is exhibiting signs and symptoms of petulant borderline personality disorder. Okay, the first thing that I want to discuss today is anger outbursts. Anger is a big theme when it comes to the petulant. There's a lot of anger and resentment, and there's a lot of anger outbursts that are misdirected, okay? And so that's something that is a big theme within the petulant BPD, okay? They're going to have those anger outbursts. They're going to be angry about a lot of things. They're going to show their anger, and they're usually going to put that anger upon anybody that's near them in the household, okay? The outside world is probably not going to see it that much, right? It's just inside the house is going to have those anger outbursts and know it all too well. Another indication is the inability to express one's feelings, okay? The petulant has the inability to express feelings because I think it's hard for them to process feelings, right? And it's hard to properly express feelings outside of the feeling of anger, okay? It seems like everything gets homogenized to anger. So if they're sad, they're angry. If they're upset, they're angry. If they're disappointed, they're angry. Because I think that anger is the go-to response because there's a lot of underlying anger as well in the situation. And I think it's very important to understand that underlying anger is a general theme because there's things that have happened in their life that they have the right to probably be pretty angry about, but they haven't been able to process that anger and let that go. Another indication of the petulant is that they feel unloved and unworthy, okay? They feel unworthy to be loved by others. They feel unloved by others. They feel almost overlooked by other people. And because they feel unworthy, they find some sort of acceptance to feel unloved. And they have a tendency of self-sabotaging behavior to enter into relationships with people who cannot love them because they have their own issues going on. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I feel unworthy to be loved. I enter into a relationship where I am unloved. And see, I'm showing myself that I'm not able to be loved, therefore I'm making that entire circle, right? So that's what happens a lot of times with the petulant. They get into a relationship where the person can't love them, and it's that self-fulfilling prophecy. Another indication is social anxiety. The anxiety of being around groups of people. They can be very socially anxious because they don't always know what to say or do. And that applies to a lot of people, okay? However, in this particular situation, the petulant finds it hard to communicate with others. And a lot of times they feel that maybe other people aren't being very honest or straightforward. They also have a tendency of wondering what other people are up to as well. So there can be part of that, the worry, is somebody going to attack me or go after me, or are they hiding something? And so that can also lead to that social anxiety. Another indication is obviously the fear of abandonment. The fear of abandonment exists for every person that has BPD to certain degrees. And that fear of abandonment with the petulant is extremely even more intense, I think, than the other subtypes. And so they'll go to all ends of the earth to not deal with that abandonment, even if it's imagined abandonment. And so they can stay in many really extremely toxic relationships just to try to keep it together because they have that fear. Another indication is that need to control others. And I think we find that a little bit with almost every type of BPD. That need to control others, to be the person in control, to point out other people's problems, other people's misdirections, that type of thing. And so if you're in a relationship with somebody that might be presenting signs and symptoms of the petulant BPD, you may be a little overwhelmed with the fact that you're constantly feeling controlled by them and told what to do, and that can be overwhelming. And so that's an indication as well. But that control factor is used to avoid that abandonment so that that person does an abandonment, so they're trying to control them, right, and what they do. It's also because the petulant feels so out of control in their own day-to-day life that they're trying to control something they can control. Another indication is that they might experience substance abuse or even an eating disorder. So, you know, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, eating disorders, and because of that insecurity, trying to fit in, kind of that lost sense of self type of thing, and also that self-destructive side as well, right? You know, that pattern of self-destruction, of self-sabotage, and so that's definitely part of it as well. Like I was saying earlier, the petulant usually can feel pretty paranoid about other people, very suspicious about other people, which I think leads to a lot of the social anxiety that they feel. They feel that somebody's going to do something, act a certain way, maybe even, you know, leave them, run away, lie to them. And so that's where that anxiety comes from, I feel. But also, they're highly suspicious and paranoid of somebody doing something to them. Also, not only just leaving them, but also perhaps making them look foolish. And that's another thing that the petulant will always try to avoid, because they do not want to look foolish. Another indication that I think is more prevalent, obviously, when it comes to the petulant BPD is there's a tendency of using self-harm. And I don't see this in the other subtypes so much. So this is interesting. So they have a tendency of self-harming themselves, whether it's, you know, cutting, or whether it's putting themselves in positions where they can get hurt and not thinking about their consequences to their actions. Another indication is those intense mood swings. And I find that those intense mood swings can be very intense with the petulant. It can be extremely highs and lows. And that's what's interesting too, is that a lot of times people can be, I think, diagnosed with bipolar sometimes, when indeed it might be more of the petulant BPD, because of those extreme mood swings, where they can be at such highs and such lows. One of the things that I find interesting to the petulant too, and I find this interesting for a lot of folks who suffer with BPD, is that constant search for validation. I actually find that most of us on this planet are searching for validation, so I don't think it's just something with BPD, right? But I think it's extreme with the borderline, because they can go to extreme lengths to prove that somebody doesn't love them, doesn't care about them, trying to get that validation, and more than likely ends up into a toxic cycle of somebody that can't love them. Or they push the person away because they can't understand that the person does love them, because they don't understand what really love is. Love itself is supposed to be unconditional love. You know, you love somebody for the fact of loving them, not for what they did or what they didn't do. And so until we really understand that and we have that for ourselves, we can't give that to other people. And if somebody doesn't understand that within themselves, if no matter how much unconditional love you're giving them, they're still not going to be able to process why you are acting that way. And sometimes because of that, with the petulant BPD, they become fearful, right? They become fearful of you because they don't understand why you're acting that way. Okay, why are you giving me this type of feelings or emotions, or you're telling me you love me, when I can't really understand and process that, and I don't understand why you would love me, because I don't have the self-worth to feel like I should be loved. Okay, so that's the circle. Okay, so a lot of people are in this relationship right now where they're with somebody that they're trying to love, but the person doesn't accept their love, questions their love, is suspicious of their love because they don't understand the component, but also they don't understand why somebody would love them, because they're the hardest critic. And I find with the petulant BPD, they are extremely hard on themselves. Okay, they don't feel like they should be loved. And you know, you understand that BPD, we talked about, you know, obviously environmental, but also genetic. So there's a lot of things there too to that component. But I really find that this instinctively true with the petulant, because it's hard for them to understand that. And because of this negative outlook that they usually have on life, they feel as though they're already behind the 8 ball a lot anyway. So that becomes an interesting dynamic when dealing with the outside world, and then for them to try to process what somebody's trying to tell them or how somebody feels. Another indication of dealing with the petulant is the fact that they may use passive-aggressive behavior. Okay, so if you're in a relationship with somebody that a lot of these characteristics, symptoms, and signs are making sense, you might say at this time, wow, yeah, they can get very passive-aggressive when I'm trying to communicate. If you are feeling like you have some of the signs and symptoms of passive-aggressive behavior, and I've done multiple videos on passive-aggressive behavior, and we'll put the links right here to those different videos, because you have to understand what passive-aggressive behavior is to understand how it's being used. if you are seeing that you might have tendencies, these symptoms and signs of having this petulant BPD, you might use passive aggressive behavior as a defense mechanism. Okay, that's what it's used for. Okay, and so if you're using that as a defense mechanism, that's something to look at as well. Usually we learn that from our environment, or we learn it as a way of defending ourselves over time. And so that's what passive aggressive behavior is used. And we use that when we feel like we're being belittled, that somebody's making us less than, that somebody's trying to take advantage of us, and because we feel like we can't speak our truth and that people are not going to understand if we speak our truth. Another indication is that the petulant has the ability to cut people out of their life immediately, like they never existed. Some petulants actually will cut out a friend that they've known for 15, 20 years. They make a decision in a matter of an hour, it's done, they never speak to them again. Okay, they cut out family members, friends. They can do it without batting an eyelash. Okay, and that's part of it too. And it's interesting how it's almost like the person's dead to them at that point in time. And so from the outside looking in, if you're married to someone that might be presenting some of these symptoms, it can be overwhelming to see that, you know, they just cut out their high school best friend over one argument. Okay, that didn't seem that important of an argument. And so that's definitely a sign that you're dealing with, or that somebody is experiencing the symptoms of petulant BPD. And the last sign that I want to talk about today when it comes to the petulant BPD is there's a tendency of using suicidal behavior and self-injury behavior to control the other people around them. So it's kind of the go-to response when they've had enough, or they're trying to gain control of the situation. Well, I'm going to kill myself, or I'm going to off myself, or I'm just going to take a bunch of pills, or you just want me to kill myself anyway. And so it can be used as a control mechanism to keep people in their life. Well, if you leave me, I'm going to kill myself. If you leave me, I'm going to do this. I'm going to jump over this. I'm going to run my car into a wall. Whatever that is and what that looks like. And it normally does a very good job of controlling the people around them because they don't want the person hurting themselves. But actually, there's another script lying there too. So the person doesn't want the petulant to hurt themselves. And so they're using that to control. The petulant also is very negative and upset with their life, right? And so they're not very happy, and so they're actually kind of thinking some of this, but this is a control mechanism, and the person that's probably in the relationship with them, well, is probably quite codependent, and so part of them believes that they need to take care of this person and that this person is their responsibility, right? And they're also codependent with the relationship, so it's not healthy. So every time the petulant uses the suicidal behavior or those comments to control that person, it sucks the person right back into the relationship. They never deal with the problems at hand, and here we go again down this cycle. Okay, so these are the signs and symptoms of petulant BPD. And I want to emphasize something. I believe that everything can be treated. I believe that BPD can be treated. I believe it's highly treatable as long as the person is willing to take responsibility and to get treatment. All of us are going through something in our life, and something we have to work on. And BPD is no different than anything else, okay? So I want to emphasize that because I've read some stuff out there where people say it's untreatable. That is just not true. I hope this video has helped you. In the next video, I'll be talking about self-destructive BPD, that subtype, the specific signs and symptoms, because remember, BPD is not one size fits all. There are very different shades of gray as we go through the different subtypes. Please share this video with your family and friends. And in the comment section below, let me know of any other signs and symptoms that you know are relevant to the petulant BPD, because we can add those in here as well. And I look forward to hearing your feedback. Don't forget to live your true life.